Well, we finally have some good news. There's relief coming for millions of Americans. And well, according to President Trump, he says it's probably coming very soon. But what exactly does that mean? Well, today we're going to talk about a few different things. First off, we're going to talk about President Trump recently saying that he wants to give all the Affordable Care Act money back to the American people. Just take those hundreds of millions of dollars or hundreds of billions of dollars and give it to the American people. But he wants to exclude high income earners, and he wants to make sure that people are actually working to receive this money. That could be big, but at the same time, there will be some setbacks there, and we'll talk about that in a moment. He also wants to provide some of the tariff rebates and send that back to the American people as well, so they can take that money and they can use it for whatever they see fit. So that's a big one as well. And then on top of all of that, something else that President Trump and the Trump administration is reportedly doing, they're working on a 50-year mortgage. That right there could actually put millions of people into homes very soon. So again, those are the three things we're going to talk about in today's video. But if you are waiting and you're wanting some relief, just know it could be coming here in the very near future. But there will be some issues, and the biggest issue as of right now is that Congress is currently shut down. Not just Congress, actually the federal government. Now, let's jump into the first one. So where exactly does President Trump think he's going with this sending money back to the American people and using the Affordable Care Act funds to do so? Well, here's what we're hearing. President Trump wants to ensure that the Affordable Care Act subsidies, that doesn't continue. He believes there's a better way, a better option for the American people than Obamacare. But he doesn't want to keep pouring hundreds of billions of dollars into Obamacare when it's not working and there's better options. There's alternatives to it. But he knows the American people need some money in order to afford going and finding a better solution. So that's something that he does plan on doing, and he's trying to provide an alternative to what Congress is currently looking at, or what the Democrats are looking at, of just extending the Affordable Care Act subsidies for another year, or potentially making that a permanent inclusion into the government funding. So that's the first thing. But this one's even bigger. President Trump is highly considering using some of this tariff rebate money and or tariff funding and sending a rebate to the American people. The reason why is because there's a lot of speculation right now that the Supreme Court is going to rule that these the IEPA ruling, or what President Trump's trying to do right now, based off his using IEPA as a reason for legally being able to get tariff revenue from some of these countries. The Trump administration believes that there's a concern that it's not going to work, and they're going to be told that they have to pay that money back. So according to reports, the Trump administration is looking at ways to spend that money before the Supreme Court says, hey, you need to go and pay this money. You need to send this money back to the American people, because it won't go back to the American people. Essentially, what's going to happen, that money will go to the importers on record, which means the American people don't see the money, but yet the importers are actually going to receive the entire benefit. They're going to do extremely well if that were to happen. And President Trump says, no, we're not going to do that. But by giving it back to the American people, or giving it to the people that spent the most money, the problem and the biggest concern there is that would be a logistic nightmare in order to try to pull that off. So the easiest thing the Trump administration can do at this time is to just take that money, give it back to the American people, and then if the Supreme Court, and keyword is if, the Supreme Court says, you know what, that wasn't legal, we actually shouldn't have been able to do that. Well, if that happens, President Trump just says, well, sorry, I don't have the money. And if you want to go and try to get it back from the American people, well, that's on you. So again, pretty interesting position to be in at this point. So the last one, and probably one of the biggest ones, a 50-year mortgage. This is going to provide a massive amount of relief to millions of Americans, because right now there's millions of Americans that cannot afford a home, that cannot buy a house because they can't get into it because the payments are too expensive. And there's also millions of people right now that have locked in on a 30-year fixed rate mortgage that is just too expensive. They can't afford it, and they're upside down. So what the Trump administration is doing right now, and what they're highly considering, is putting together a 50-year mortgage. Okay? That right there would be a game changer. That right there would be something that people would remember. And keep in mind that the majority of homeowners right now, they don't live in their home for 30 years. They don't even live in their home for 50 years. But what this is going to allow homeowners to do is give them that kind of on-ramp of home ownership. Allow them to get into a home, start building some equity, and then again, at the end of it, they're not going to pay for 50 years on a home loan. The average homeowner doesn't stay in their home for 30 years. So right now, it doesn't matter if it's a 30-year loan or a 50-year loan. It's the exact same thing. It just makes the payment much cheaper. Now, in the long run, you're going to pay a lot more for interest on that home, because your payments are going to be less, meaning you're going to have a longer, you got 50 years worth of payments. Again, that's a massive amount of payments. 30 years, in my opinion, is a long time to be paying for a mortgage. But at the same time, it's something you're going to have for forever. You need a home. You need a place to live. So that is something that the Trump administration is looking at this time. They're still putting in the kind of the final pieces and trying to figure out if this is something that's doable. But not only doable, is this something that would hurt the U.S. economy? And I think this does a few different things. First off, this is going to allow more people to jump into homes, which means it's going to bring rental prices down. But at the same time, if this brings interest rates, or makes it more affordable for interest rates, there's a little bit of concern that the price of homes is going to skyrocket if we see a 50-year mortgage be introduced. Now, I don't know exactly what this is going to look like. I don't know how many people would jump on a 50-year mortgage. I know I jump on a 50-year mortgage personally, especially if this was something for like an investment property. If I could get a 50-year mortgage on an investment property and it's paid down by a tenant, or I can flip a property, that would be incredible. But again, we're still waiting on the details there. But as of right now, what the Trump administration is looking at is, let's get the government open. Let's get the federal government open so that we don't see all these other issues. And then on top of that, let's provide relief to the American people. Because right now, everyone's talking about affordability. We are currently in an affordability crisis. So how do we provide more benefits, more assistance to the American people so they can actually live and not be reliant on the federal government for food stamps, for housing assistance, and things like that? So as we get more information on this, I promise I'll bring you all the latest news and updates as soon as we get it. But as of today, that is what we know. So again, thank you guys for watching. Consider subscribing, and I'll see you guys on the next one.